We are live.
Hey, hey. Once again, number 5.
Back on the big leagues, back on YouTube.
Yeah, you know, it's good. I am happy that the world was a safer place over the last week when we weren't on YouTube because of you know, we were no longer spreading medical misinformation. And so I wonder how many lives were saved.
Dozens, millions. It is terrible. I mean, it sucks because like here I am preparing the show and I'm just looking through and I'm predicting how the conversation will go. And I'm like, I just can't do this story, you know, like if I want to stay on YouTube. It happened when we had Schollenberger and Jeffrey Tucker on, and it happened again. So we just got to go with it.
You know, it's funny. I just now remembered that I can't say certain things now. Nor can you. Neither one of us can say certain words. We can't refer to certain major news events at all because the algorithms can pick up certain words and we get our second strike and then be off YouTube for a long time. It's I just remembered that I've never done this in my life. I've never censored myself like that. And geez, I don't know. All I have to say is Odyssey is the future, I hope. Or Rumble or one of those. We got to explore those too. But yeah, this is really, it's something else. I can't say certain words. And amazingly, the words that I can't say aren't words that I've said before, like slavery, freedom, you know, sex work, prostitution, sex, all sorts of words I've said that normally get people upset, but these are words that actually don't get anyone upset. But for some reason, well, I know the reason, many reasons, we're not allowed to say them here. It's really, really something else. Anyway, so on with the show that will be about all the news except for that.
We are simulcasting on Odyssey right now, so if you want to head over, see how that stream's working, we're up there. And then, you know, after this, we do go on Zoom and we talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about.
And people should know that on the Patreon and all the Patreon shows we do, which are accessible to patron members, like Unregistered Live right after this, we say whatever the fuck we want to. I think actually I'm not supposed to say the F word either. I just heard that someone just said that they're flagging even cursing now.
I don't know about that. They definitely say that in the first 30 seconds of the video, if you want to stay monetized, you shouldn't curse because it's been over 30 seconds, so we're cool. But
yeah, that's the monetization. That's for advertisers. YouTube doesn't care about curse words politically. They only care about the certain words about the certain news event of the last few years.
You know, I think we both have this problem where we literally we can't turn it off, you know? Where
yeah right,
it's really hard.
That's why we do what we do, man. You know, we are that kind of person who can't shut up and has a lot to say and a lot of observations that need to be expressed verbally. Yet so yeah, we find ourselves in the first have you ever been in a situation like this where you had to censor yourself like this?
Oh, I mean, I did 4 years at college.
Yeah, okay, that's true. That is training for this. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. College, which produced all the YouTube executives who made, you know, the college you went to is the kind of exactly the kind of place where all the YouTube executives went and where they got their training. That's not a coincidence. You know, it is the same regime. It's funny, is this going to get us flagged talking mad shit about YouTube on YouTube? No, the university of today and the YouTube executive offices are the same place. I mean, it's the same people, it's the same culture, it's the same norms, the same rules, the same list of words you're not supposed to say, and controlled by the same people and producing the same result, which is the global dominance of the Democratic Party.
And this censorship is new in that it's not there are no words that you can't say. It's not even like what you say is bad or anything. It's that you aren't qualified to talk about this. You aren't an expert. Your opinion, you haven't earned it yet. Like, you know, certain
Yeah.
people can talk about these topics forever, and they set the tone on what can be said, and we just have to follow their advice. But because we haven't earned that, we're not in positions of power. We're not, you know, we're not employed by certain agencies. We don't get to have an opinion.
I really, yeah, no, it's so what you just described is, you know, textbook dystopia. I mean, that's quite Orwellian. Anyone hearing what you just said would say, "Oh yeah, that's straight out of 1984." Well, what I have wanted to do ever since this started happening, when YouTube, this is the second time we've been censored by YouTube. People may not know that. Both times for the same issue, same words. The thing I've wanted to do, and this, of course, is because I come from where I come from, and I still carry resentments, obviously, about it. I want to go ask all of my personal friends, you know, and family members who are liberals and who are Democrats and who believe that what I said about that issue is terrible and wrong. I want to say, I haven't done this yet. I want to go to them and say, look what YouTube did. Do you think that, and this is going on not just with me, I would tell them, this is with many of my friends. I have told them that actually. Many of my friends have been censored and demonetized, etc., in the same way for the same issues, on the same issues. I mean, do you, and I would say this to my my mother, my friends, my best friend from high school who still lives here, you know, all these people who are Democrats but who know me and are friends of mine, you know, is this what you want? Because I'm not even sure they're aware that people like me with ideas like mine and yours are getting censored. And by the way, some of them will say, oh, well, you know, this is not a First Amendment issue because YouTube's a corporation. It's a private entity. Sure it is, except that the United States Congress informed YouTube that they would be censored themselves and probably taken over by the government if they didn't conduct this kind of censorship. So did everyone forget about all those hearings on Capitol Hill? Remember when Zuckerberg and company all got dragged from their offices here in Silicon Valley up to Capitol Hill to tell the senators and the Congress people there that, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, we will obey what you say. We will obey. We will censor the ideas that you don't want people hearing. And by the way, is that the sign of a strong regime? No. This should give us hope, actually. When they resort to censoring podcasters for stating opinions about one of the biggest news stories of our generation, you're insecure, man. The regime is insecure. If they're afraid of us, or even Joe Rogan, like Joe Rogan, massive audience, but like, what exactly is Joe Rogan going to do to anybody? You know, so, and by the way, win Joe Rogan over, it can be done. You know, like get some guests on there who play on your team. Joe's open to that stuff. He could be talking stuff that the Democrats would love to hear, but I think they're panicking. I think they're freaking out. And as I said in the letter to the patrons today, you know, the list of things that are happening in the world, which are so dramatic. You know, we're talking about people in Sri Lanka on the verge of starvation. We're talking about war in the middle of Europe, hot war in the middle of Europe, hundreds of soldiers getting killed per day, by the way. When you're talking about Germany not having enough fuel to heat the homes there in the winter because they cut off the oil supply from Russia, to Joe Biden barely being sentient and every day saying something that embarrasses everybody on Capitol Hill in the White House. All those things, and there's much more, all those things add up to the end of the empire. And the thing is, the empire, the American empire, what people call the empire, Glenn Greenwald, I think, is the only other person who's ever said, I'm not even sure he said this, it's a Democratic Party empire. The Democratic Party created the whole thing, every institution that makes it up. The idea of a global American empire, Democrats, liberals, progressives, across the board, Republicans went along with it, by the end of the 20th century and early 21st century with the Bushes. But as we all know, the neocons who came up with the Iraq War, ideas, they're all originally progressives. And all of them state as their heroes, the neocons and all of them state as their heroes, Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, and Harry Truman, like the greatest American imperialists of all time. So the regime is not just cracking, like we're starting to see like whole shelves like cleave off of it. It seems to be breaking apart from within. And God fucking knows, and maybe God help us, what replaces it. And I am scared. I mean, I am not so gung-ho for the revolution, although it just seems inevitable now, that I'm cheering it on, because I don't know. I mean, the nationalist populists have a lot of great critiques, and I agree with them on many issues, but on some issues, on many other issues, they're, from my point of view, from my perspective, according to my values, terrible. So on a whole host of cultural issues and social issues, what are called social issues, yeah, I mean, they're not good. They're very censorious themselves. They just want to censor different things. They don't want to censor critiques of a certain news item. They want to censor basically what the Puritans wanted to censor. And it's neo-Puritanism in its very like sort of naked form too. Feminism and a lot of progressivism is Puritanism too, but it's not it's not as overtly puritanical. And it's also I mean it's interesting, the difference in the Puritanisms of the two sides, of the left and the right. They're both puritanical across the board, and especially about sex. Actually, that's one of the big misunderstandings of the left, right? That the right wing has, is they think that the progressives are a bunch of drag queen hookers, basically, having bacchanals every night on the Epstein Island. Now, the progressives are the ones who invented the censorship of sex. It was their damn idea under progressivism and when the social purity campaign of the 19th century, late 19th century. That was social purity says it all. It was banning prostitution, banning homosexuality, banning birth control, all that stuff back then. That was all progressives who did that. They're the OG Puritans and remain so. But anyway, we're going to replace this this strange progressive Puritanism with this old school fire and brimstone kind of Puritanism that the conservatives bring, that MAGA brings, that the nationalist populists bring, that Trump, not Trump, ironically, but all of his followers bring, which is essentially homophobic. Also, I mean, I think it's been revealed that Libs of TikTok is homophobic. I mean, a lot of the videos that she posts are simply people expressing their gayness. And many commentators have stated, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's gayness. In fact, what Libs of TikTok is doing is expressing homophobia, a latent homophobia that was driven underground, apparently, for many years when the gay marriage movement succeeded. It seemed to me that the culture war was done. It was over, that side had given up, that they accepted gays in their lives, but apparently not. Apparently there's quite a bit of homophobia still left over. And I don't want those people having state power.
Dang, you pivoted to the homophobia point. I wanted to stick on the feminism point.
Either one.
Yeah, Anakachian recently on the most recent episode of Red Scare was talking about the phenomenon of internet feminists becoming e-girl, like trad wives. That phenomenon?
Yeah.
And she nailed it perfectly, which really encapsulated the alliance that the hard right and the feminists have always had against porn and against sexuality, in that she said what they have in common is that it's a way to censor male sexuality. Yeah, in that it's a way to control male sexuality. It's a way to control the male free spirit that went to the internet in the first place to escape female nagging.
Yeah, Anna is always right about stuff like this. Yeah, it's demonization of male sexuality. Fellas listening and watching around the world right now, ask yourself this. Do you feel comfortable walking outside and expressing your lust for another woman, for a woman? Will you feel like you can just say that and won't be punished at all? And I'm talking about normal lust, not like talking about raping anybody, not talking about assaulting anybody, just saying, wow, she's hot. I'd really like to fuck her. That's it. Guys, men out there, is that something you can do out in public in front of people? What happens when you do that? What happens when you do that? Do you get punished at all? Oh my God, do you? And you get punished by not just your mom and grandmom. You get punished by the feminist over here. You also get punished by the conservative over there. You get punished by the Christian sitting over here and the Jew from New York over there. Like, they all hate that shit. They all crack down on male sexuality, masculine sexuality, I should say, is what it is. And that's a very big topic we can get into, but it'd have to be a lot of unpacking. But yes, this is what they share. The left-wing feminists and the right-wing pro-life types, what, for lack of a better term. Yeah, they want to demonize male sexuality. It's interesting. Well, I mean, I'd say both actually want to demonize female sexuality as well. I mean, what do the feminists have to say about porn? Oh, exactly the same thing that the Christian conservatives have to say about porn. As a matter of fact, in the 1970s and 80s, they joined forces and got a lot of laws passed in the United States censoring porn in cities across the country. Minneapolis was the first. Andrea Dworkin and Catherine McKinnon got together. These were big anti-porn feminists. Got together with Jerry Falwell's team and a bunch of Christian conservatives. And they got laws passed in those cities banning the sale of porn in those cities. That was before the internet. So that's the only way you could get porn, is go into a porn store, pretty much. So yeah, they have been in cahoots for a while in their assault. And, who did that affect most then, back in the 1970s and 80s? 90% of the porn audience was men then. It's different now, but then this was clearly an attack on men, although they both claimed to be protecting the women in the porn magazines who they claimed are being victimized by this. And what they have in common, Michael, what it comes down to is they both believe, both sides, the liberal feminists and the Christian conservatives, that sexuality is inherently damaging, destructive, dark, dirty, and bad. And that the mixing of that stuff with human beings immediately degrades the human beings. Any contact a human being has with sex degrades the human being. That's their thinking, right? This is why we're so ashamed of sex. Again, fellas, tell me about your male privilege, and tell me again when's the last time you told someone you jerked off today? I could have sworn we're just walking around telling everybody about our cocks all the time. The way they talk about our masculine privilege and about men get away with everything, and about how we live in a rape culture in which men feel entitled to women's butt. Hello? No. We get shamed all the time. Oh, and by the way, then ask yourself this, men out there. Or no, yeah. Your gay male friends and your female friends, can they express, or have they expressed, lust for men and been shamed for it? Or not shamed for it? Yeah, I mean, that's what happens all the time. On Twitter, everybody I follow who's gay on Twitter, who's like openly gay, they're constantly putting up beefcake pics and talking about how they want to suck somebody's cock. Like, my good friend Connor Habib is just one of them, I mean, but it's normal. I mean, he's a porn star, but like, still, it's like, there's lots of like, I'm thinking of what's his face, Saeed Jones. Is that his name? He's this incredibly annoying guy who works for one of the big outlets. I think it's, what is it? Anyway, one of the big media outlets, Saeed Jones. He's a poet and he's very outwardly gay. And he's always talking about things that men could never say about women. He's always saying things about wanting to fuck men in ways that you could just never do the other way around. It's very common. Gay men get away with it all the time, as do women. There is no punishment for a woman who says she wants to fuck some movie star. But it's actually considered to be gross and seedy for a man to just say he wants to fuck whoever the latest movie star is. Right? I mean, there's obviously a double standard. So why is it that men's sexuality is being attacked by both sides, and not so much women's sexuality, although they both do. Yeah, I don't know.
That's how you won me over on gay culture. Is
Oh,
I got to see all these liberated, horny men living their best lives. And
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, this is why this is why every day, Michael, I've told you this. This is why every day when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I pray to God to make me gay today. Please make me gay, God, so that I can just have all kinds of sex all the time. And yeah, none of that nuclear family shit. Too late now, but anyway. Yeah, no, I wish he could make me retroactively gay. I could go back and live my life as a gay man instead. Just kidding, everyone. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Kind of kidding. Mostly kidding. There is a point there. I mean, there is a lot more, has been a lot more freedom, and especially sexual freedom among gay men than any other group. I mean, they're much more comfortable with it. They talk about it openly. They express their desires very openly. They act on their desires often very openly and publicly, especially before gay marriage, right? People forget like how badass gay culture was before gay marriage. I mean, that was really where like the edge of liberation was in our society. And that's why they were my heroes. As a straight man, I always have admired and loved gay men for exactly that reason, you know, and but then the gay marriage thing came along, and Larry Kramer and Andrew Sullivan and company, who led the gay marriage movement, they were right up front about it. They said, we got to stop fucking in the bushes. That was Larry Kramer's famous line, you know. Andrew Sullivan said, we need the end of gay culture. We got to stop having sex in bathhouses, close the bathhouses, close the bars, close the clubs. And they got it. They created a whole generation of gay men. Although I think there's definitely dissidents within it, but a whole generation of gay men who are really into being married, having kids, shopping at IKEA, and supporting the Ukraine war. Like and they love gays in the military. They think that's the greatest thing, you know, to get gays in the military. These are fully assimilated gays. The full assimilation of gays is one of the greatest tragedies in our history for the culture of this country. To lose that culture, that radical liberatory culture that was gay male culture for a century, to lose that and all that it gave to us. I mean, in terms of music, movies, art, all of it, film, you name it. Genius after genius, whose special genius was in embracing liberation in their art and saying things you weren't supposed to say. I mean, read Cole Porter's lyrics sometime, everyone. You ever read Cole Porter's lyrics? I mean, considered by many to be the greatest songwriter in American history. Of course, certainly one of them. Very known to be gay. And it's just beyond genius what he did with words. And he did it also in this way that was remarkable. We're talking about the mid 20th century when, you know, bawdiness was not allowed. And a lot of his songs ended up in Hollywood, right? So he had to be very, very coy. And so if you read his lyrics, you can see there's this remarkable subtext that's all sexual, right? But none of it's apparent to the naked eye and to the censors in Hollywood who let it pass by. But that was some amazingly liberatory and subversive shit. And that was Cole Porter, a gay man. And he's just one of hundreds and thousands of gay men who were in the arts, especially, who were just phenomenally free, both in their art and in their lives, in their personal lives. Of course, in public, they were shunned, harassed, jailed, beaten. But in their private lives, they were the greatest beacons of liberty in this fucking country's history.
Yeah. People might look at a 20th century United States, maybe New York, although Cole Porter, born and raised in Indiana.
So, oh yeah. There you go. Hoosier, baby.
Yep. But they might look back at the 20th century the same way they look at Renaissance Italy. Like all those artists in Renaissance Italy were gay.
Boom.
Yeah. And if you read Dante, when he talks about sodomy, he talks about it as a distraction of your energy output, and he says that it's what made the gays so like the fact that the gays didn't have to worry about building a family, that they didn't have to worry about conventional standards. It led them to treat their art as almost as an idol and push it past points that could never be reached us mere mortals.
Yep. Yep. I've never read this guy, but I've heard this said a lot. Hans Hermann Hoppe apparently makes a similar argument about time preference among gays. Am I
Mhm.
right about that?
Yeah, it's a complicated argument in how you interpret it. In that, like, I mean, the obvious fact that gays make more money and spend more money, and what kind of
Right.
culture do you think you're going to have if you have a large community of gay people? Um,
hmm A fun one,
mhm.
a really fun one, and a pretty one.
Yeah.
Things are going to look good and smell good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're straight living in a gay culture, that would be a little awkward. Like if you lived in Provincetown,
Mhm.
yeah, that would be tough. Provincetown, Provincetown's hilarious. I mean, I have spent a lot of time in the Castro in San Francisco and in the West Village around Christopher Street in New York, like the big capitals of gay culture. But man, they are nothing compared to Provincetown, Massachusetts, which is on Cape Cod, the northern end of Cape Cod, I think. It's like the dogs are gay in Provincetown. I mean, it's the gayest. I mean, it really felt like a ghetto. It's a separate town too, so it's sort of close. Oh wow! But anyway, being a straight person there would be tricky. Not totally comfortable. I've been, gosh, I've been in gay bars as the only straight person several times, and often in lesbian bars. I lived with a lesbian in Washington, D.C. when I was in my early 20s. And so she would take me to these huge lesbian bars in D.C. with like hundreds and hundreds of women. And I'd be not only the only man, the only straight person, too. Going to the bathroom was interesting because they had colonized the bathroom. So I walked into the men's bathroom. I walk into the men's bathroom. It's full of women who start giggling when I go to the urinal and, start my thing. That's YouTube safe terminology. Start my thing, by the way.
Mhm.
All right, back to the news. Sorry
Yeah,
for the digression.
all the news that's fit to print here. Okay, man. All right. I'm gonna give you. This feels like a game almost. Like I give you like an international story, and I have no idea. Well, I kind of have an idea of what to think about it, but I'm always interested to see what you say. So here's what's going on with the banks in China right now. There's a lot of chaos internationally, as you hinted at, but this is one that I don't see being reported on. It might be a bigger story.
The regulators are now stating that customers of rural Chinese banks whose withdrawals have been frozen will begin to get some money back. China's rural banking sector has been hit hard by Beijing's efforts to rein in a property bubble and spiraling debt. In a financial crackdown that has had ripple effects across the world's second largest economy. Now, 4 banks in China's Henan province froze cash withdrawals in mid-April in the face of regulatory scrutiny into alleged mismanagement, leaving thousands of depositors without funds and sparking demonstrations. 10th of July 2022 witnessed one of the largest rallies of its kind, where hundreds gathered outside a branch of the People's Bank of China in Henan's capital Zhengzhou, demanding their money. Protests prompted a harsh official response, with demonstrators forced onto buses by police and beaten by plainclothes men. Both groups hit each other and pushed each other away. A large group of security personnel in plain clothes and uniforms were at the scene. According to analysts, the Henan Bank scandal, in which $6 billion in deposits disappeared, is more than a Chinese banking crisis. It is a political crisis that could undermine the people's confidence in local governance and also other local banks. The Henan banks are among a wave of small local financial institutions hit by cash flow and management woes. The Anhui province also announced that it would begin repaying the deposits of some customers of a Bengbu city bank after online complaints and reports of frozen withdrawals surfaced. Protests are rare in the tightly controlled China, but desperate citizens have occasionally succeeded in organizing mass gatherings, usually when their targets are local governments or individual corporations. The scandal should alarm investors not simply because of the brutal tactics used by the local authorities eager to cover it up, but because of the circumstances under which these small banks failed. And if a large number of small banks fail together, such an event could produce a chain reaction threatening the stability of the financial sector. Their counterparties and lenders, especially bigger banks, could suffer massive losses.
Wow. Protests are rare, she said, in China. True. The last big protest I remember on mainland China was 1989, Tiananmen Square. And when I see violent street fighting like that against the authorities in mainland China, I'm starting to think the dam has broken again. Chinese communism, you could say, is like a great dam, you know, holding in all these people, holding in all this water. But it's the edifice is shaky, has some cracks in it. And normally, though, it keeps the water contained. But every once in a while, after a big rainstorm, which is the economy now, the water can start to seep through, and then it breaks through. Very apparently, this is the pattern in giant outbursts. You know, 20, 30 years before Tiananmen, you had similar giant protests that had different results, right? Cultural revolution, etc. So yeah, that's number one. It looks to me like the Chinese government, and there's other stuff going on there that's very problematic for them. The population crisis, they're losing people, they're going to lose people. And you can't have your giant army to take over the world if you don't have the people for it. Yeah, there's a real problem here. This could be the dam breaking. When you see Chinese citizens, again, mainland China, not Hong Kong, fighting the cops, this is Chinese communist cops, okay? In the street like that, in an organized way too, oof. That's a bad sign for them. So, and then I'm thinking, well, okay, so you got Western Europe up in flames now. Germany can't heat its homes. The United States economy is going into the tank. China also is in crisis. Well, that means who is the only winner these days? Russia. Russia is the only country that's doing well. Yes, there have been strains by the war on their economy, but report after report after report after report, they're doing just fine because they're so self-sufficient. People didn't realize that before the war. I didn't know it either. The Russian economy is remarkably self-sufficient. They don't have to import much at all. And they've been making bank on selling their oil to all these rivals of the US, known as BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. This is this new organization that's been formed among those states. Never reported on in the mainstream press here. Those are, you know, some of the biggest countries in the world, right? They formed an organization. They're working together. They're allied with each other. So the BRICS countries were like, yeah, give us your oil. Germany doesn't want it? Good. We'll take your oil and we'll pay you in rubles too. So Russia's doing quite well. Thank you very much. Not to mention the fact that having conquered successfully Eastern Ukraine and Southern Ukraine, and he's on his way to sealing it off entirely by taking Odessa. Guess how popular Vladimir Putin is these days in Russia? The problem for the Western elites, the problem for the US foreign policy establishment, the problem for military industrial Putin, right? He's in forever. He's king. Russians love him overwhelmingly. Not everyone. There's serious dissidents, but he's probably more popular than any American president ever has been, having just won this war. So the whole world's going down around Russia. I never would have guessed that Russia would be standing on top at this moment in history. Never. It's quite amazing. Yeah, that's a place. I mean, I was going to say, Russia's a place you should think about, like, investing in. Should think about a place you should be visiting, you know, as a place you might either want to live potentially. A lot of Westerners, by the way, are moving to Russia. Lots of Brits are moving to Russia these days permanently. You know, St. Petersburg is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. I was there in 1986, 87. Gorgeous. Moscow's rough. I wouldn't live there, but although Moscow's so transformed since I was there, I don't even know. But St. Petersburg, the bones of St. Petersburg are just gorgeous. And it's right across from Finland. It's very, very European. I recommend it. See what a Putin stooge I am? Look at this. I'm actually serving as their tourist agency, the tourism board for the Kremlin. I'm encouraging tourism now to Russia because they pay me so well, Michael.
We're drowning in that. Please
There-
don't send me super chats. We're good, guys. We're good.
Seriously, oh Jesus. I just need that second strike badly, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, no, Russia's on top. China's going. I mean, wow. So that's what, otherwise I can't comment too much on the Chinese economy because I'm just not an expert. I just don't know it that well. I just have heard reports of these bank failings, basically failures, and especially the attacks on the banks, which are all state-owned.
Mm-hmm.
The physical attacks by protesters, people who lost their money, for God's sake. Can you imagine the bank just like one day announcing that you're not getting your money out of your account anymore? Sorry.
Well, have you been following the Celsius story?
No.
So Celsius is a DeFi platform that it had over 1.7 million users, and people put their crypto in there. They said, hey, there's so many ways to earn interest on your crypto. We'll do all that dirty work for you, and every week we'll give you a return on it. Worked out great. About a month ago, they paused withdrawals, and about a week ago, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Ooh.
So,
yeah.
What's
going on in crypto? I don't know. I mean, no one knows. It's just so weird. I'm glad I divested myself from crypto about a year ago. I dabbled in a tiny way for a while just to sort of see what it was like and sort of see how it moved and all that. And then it was sort of like everybody was like, hold on for dear life, et cetera, et cetera. Even then, that was after the dip. I bought after the dip. So I bought in like the 30,000 range, 35,000 range, somewhere in there. And it had just been 60, 70, before then. And all my crypto head friends were just like, oh yeah, man, perfect timing. Because let me tell you, it's mathematically proven that crypto will be dominant in the world. And they got me believing it too. And maybe I still do. I don't know. It could still be true. But boy, the tune has changed though in the crypto world lately. Don't you think?
I think the tune has changed. I think the crypto bros are still definitely long crypto. I think right now the meme coins have been flushed out. All the Doge coins, all the Shiba Inu, all the just weird, like all the weird stuff is getting flushed out. I see more adaptation. I see more integration from crypto technology still, which is what's puzzling me, is that like there's more and more platforms. NFTs are getting more and more efficient. There's more and more trading. There's more and more things you can do with your crypto now, and yet the price keeps dipping. So I'm bullish still. I think that crypto has taken these hits before. It's just didn't have the, it wasn't over $1 trillion market cap to begin with. So it didn't feel like a huge event. It was just some nerds losing half their money for a week.
Yep. Well, one of the smartest people in the world and one of the best investors of all time, Mark Andreessen. Someone looked this up. I forget the exact number, but multiple billions of dollars. I want to say somewhere between $5 and $10 billion. Andreessen Horowitz is putting into their Web3 project, which rides entirely on top of crypto. So the whole he basically just invested or bet many billions of dollars on crypto is what that deal is. Everyone should check that out. It's an amazing, humongous project that, if it's even 50% successful, will transform the way we all live. Mark Andreessen's project, Web3. It could also be a flop. But, the main point I was making there is that he's making a massive bet on crypto. And Andreessen, as I said, possibly the smartest investor of all time. So, I mean, if you look at like his portfolio, it's a who's who of, legendary internet giants. So yeah, anyway, crypto, I don't know. It's just that my point there was, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know is the discourse has changed. For the first time, there's real pessimism about crypto that I just haven't seen.
Yeah. I think it's just flushed out all of the opportunistic actors from the last year or two. I think that's what's going on, is there's a lot of really dumb and exploitative money being made. And this Celsius thing happening it essentially was a Ponzi scheme. The CEO of that company basically lied about what he was doing with the money. Yeah, he was leveraging it when he said he wasn't. So
Right.
there's a lot of bad actors like that. There's a lot of celebrities who just minted an NFT and scammed their fans. There's a lot of little things like that just to get in on the gold rush. But yeah, long term, there's legit technology here that's going to go somewhere, you know?
Well, I mean, it's going to go somewhere. I just don't know if it's going to end up taking over the way that they've been saying, or even taking over a significant chunk of the economy. It's not even a significant chunk yet in terms of what people use it for, right? Tiny portion of the economy is crypto exchange for goods and services. It just doesn't happen much at all, which is all that matters. I mean, for most of us, that's what we want to know. We want to see that happening. We want to see like it to be normal for your mom to say, "Oh yeah, I just went to the grocery store and used Bitcoin." But that's so far off. And until I see the beginning of that, we have not seen the beginning of that. We saw Bitcoin ATMs 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but we haven't seen anything like people using Bitcoin at the grocery store. Right. So I don't know, man. I'm starting to wonder. And like another massive dip. There was no rebound. There has not been a rebound really since the big one.
Yeah. Well, it is put up or shut up time, but yeah, that falls on developers for sure to make something.
I mean, I'm now really pessimistic. I'm now thinking the governments are going to end up using it. That's what it'll be. That's the game. That's the change of the game that will happen, is that crypto will become this new instrument for governments. Because they can do whatever they want with it.
Absolutely. The white papers for central bank digital currencies are already out there.
Right.
Now, what makes me optimistic is that when they came out with those, they were saying, we have to do this because we're basically already too late. That the technology for crypto already creates the possibility of an infrastructure without us. So we need to get in now. And the problem is, you know, the renegades, the people who live outside the system are always the minority. So you can't convince your grandma to live like a renegade and use this weird internet illegal money. So it's a tough road ahead of us for it.
Here's the question. Should we teach crypto? We taught it at RU. I'd love to teach it at Unregistered Academy. But now I don't know. Now I'm talking so much shit about it. Should we teach? Maybe we should just do a debate about the future of crypto first.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of want to know. I want to know what people are saying now, because I haven't talked to any of my crypto friends recently since this latest dip, and I want kind of hear what their tone is. And I'd like to know what the argument is. I don't know what the argument is anymore. I mean, well, you just gave it, but I'd like to hear like what. I don't even know, what is Saylor and company. What are they saying?
Michael Saylor is a little weird because he's sunk in so many costs into just investing in Bitcoin that I can't really take his word for anything right now.
Okay. Right. Yeah, he's up. He's in for 40 million. What is it? What did his company?
It's got to be in the billions. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Is it 40 billion?
It might be.
No.
Yeah, with all the
really
total Bitcoin holdings. Michael's.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it is.
Because it's MicroStrategies. It's his
right.
Whole,
it's got to be. Yeah. You're right. I think it's 40 something. 40 billion. It must be 40 billion. He invested.
Okay.
Whatever it is, it's like the whole company.
640 million on May 6th. 531 million on Friday. So he's lost 100 million. He's been losing. It's in the hundreds of millions.
Okay, hundreds of millions. Okay, so he's lost a big chunk of that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, he's definitely not an unbiased observer. He has lots of incentive to talk well of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and he's a Bitcoin maximalist, and he's talked about getting the government in to regulate some of the other currencies, which is, you know, he wants to get rid of the currencies that might compete with Bitcoin and do Bitcoin a little better. So, you know, he's sunken so much into Bitcoin and just Bitcoin that he's kind of an untrustworthy maximalist at this point.
Yeah. So you're still in. You're still bullish.
I am still bullish. Yeah. I'm still. I think. Yeah. Like if you see where it started,
give me an argument. Give me an argument. On the spot here, live on YouTube.
I just think anybody who adopts crypto will have a competitive advantage against anybody who doesn't. I think all the banks are increasingly unstable.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
every government is built on a house of cards. That's the thing that's kind of helping the
True.
dollar right now, is that we export our dollar to help out everybody else who doesn't have a stable currency.
Okay.
So, and then inflation keeps rising. Bitcoin
Yep. Yep.
is popular enough to where it's kind of at that tipping point where it's not crypto, it's Bitcoin. Like, a lot of people think of Bitcoin as crypto.
Right.
So it's that unanimous in people's heads, and it's limited to where it can serve the purpose of being the global reserve currency. And you've seen Ecuador adopt it, and you've seen other governments.
El Salvador.
El Salvador, yeah, adopt it. And yeah, you've seen Mark Andreessen, and you've seen legit people put their money where their mouth is on this. And the vast majority of people who hold Bitcoin have been holding it through this entire time. So yeah, as the price fluctuates, as it's been volatile this whole time, as anybody who's been in it for a while, like, man, I remember I saw it at $200, like, when I was in college.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, that's too expensive. I'll wait.
Oh.
And then it shot up to a couple $1,000s, and I'm like, yeah. So I didn't jump in until, like, yeah.
So that was a beautiful, comprehensive argument for being bullish on crypto and Bitcoin in particular. It also reminded me, though, of the anarchists. Have people been watching it? So I make my debut on the 31st, July 31st, on Sunday. That's apparently, I'll be in episodes 4 and 5 of the anarchists. People have been asking me, but it's really fun. I love it. It's really well done. It's really fun. It's really, Todd, who's the director, he did a great job of explaining these very difficult political concepts in it. But last episode, Sunday night, I knew a little bit about this. I didn't know the extent of it. Lily had told me that they had lost a bunch of money in Bitcoin, or lost a lot of Bitcoin, I guess. But they did the numbers, and all of them, John, Lily, Henza, all those anarcho-polka weirdos, they all had invested a bunch of money in Bitcoin. And then I guess when they went broke, they had troubles or whatever, they sold it all. And that's what it was. They showed what the value would be now if they had held. And it was something, I mean, all of them would be multi-millionaires. Lily would be a multi-millionaire if she had just held onto the Bitcoin she had. And that girl has been poor, and I mean poor, her entire life. Still is, although I think that's about to change now that she's a movie star. She's amazing in it. I mean, she's one of the best things about it. The whole thing is great, and she's one of the best parts of it because she does this great job of narrating it, and she's so good at it. And God, yeah, it's really amazing. I'm really proud of everybody who was part of that, and I was really proud that I was a part of it. Very much so. For about a year and a half, I was basically consulting producer, and I was talking to Lily every day and up to my neck in the whole thing. It was utterly crazy and terrifying, but it was also, had this amazing relationship with Lily. And then I was just, and Todd was working on this thing. He worked on it for 6 years, and I just never thought it was going to be much. And then the murder happens, and I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be huge, man. You got to do it right. And he did. He really did. At least so far. First 2 episodes have been pretty banging, I think. And it's great. What do you think of it? We talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah. Yeah, again, I was worried that they might make us look like weirdos, but you know what? We are weirdos. And we're really, and they get to the human aspect of it very well. My only when
you say we, you mean the Acapulco people?
Just, yeah, everybody involved in this whole movement, pretty much.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I'm not sure I'm involved in their movement.
Well, you've spoken at Anarcho-Polka before.
I mean, well, I guess so, but I mean, I'm not. Yeah, sure, but I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to identify with it. But
you didn't move to Mexico. Yeah, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, parts of it. Well, also like the Jeff Berwick philosophy, it's a particular thing. It's a particular brand of anarchism. It is anarchism for sure, and all these idiot ancoms on Twitter who are yelling about, oh, it's not real anarchism, are idiots. It's definitely anarchism, but it's its own particular flavor, which is not exactly mine. Very crypto dependent, by the way. Like the whole vision of doing these independent communities like this really rests on crypto. I mean, they were to get the financing for Anarchapulco happened, and the Acapulco anarchist community happened because a bunch of people got rich on Bitcoin, right? And then they lost it, and now it's gone. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We will see. Anyway, I am certainly sympathetic to their anti-statism. I am certainly sympathetic to the thing I like about the Berwick philosophy is that there is a lot more cultural libertarianism in it than you'll find in like all the think tanks and Reason and all that stuff. So I do appreciate that. But anyway, yes, HBO makes them look like a bunch of weirdos, but in ways that are totally fair. Like I was there. I know these people. Yes, they and we and I, I'm in it too. It's true. Yeah, we are weirdos. So anyway, yeah, I cut you off though. You're gonna say?
Oh no, yeah, they got that right. They got the human interest very well. Yeah, Lily is amazing, and like when I saw just the sharp contrast between her with the dreads and her how she is now,
Amazing.
I'm like, yeah, immediately I'm like,
amazing.
Yeah, and like I'm nervous for her now. Like I want you to make it through this, but I know she has. But like I'm getting invested like it's Breaking Bad or something,
Yeah. So. By the way, I talked to Todd and Kim, and Kim's the I guess she's associate director. They're a couple. They made it, but anyway, they're going to be on the show. We're going to do at least one or two shows, and I think we're going to do at least one thing where it'll be a Q&A for patrons, by the way, and we're going to do that with Lily. Do a Q&A with Lily for patrons and Todd and Kim, and then I'm going to try to get some other people from it as well. But yeah, that'll be awesome. I was really excited about that. Mm-hmm. So, breaking Buttcoin. That's funny. Yeah. All right. What's next?
Yeah. Well, just to get it completely clear, this is The Anarchists on HBO Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Streaming on HBO Max.
Exactly. Well worth it.
Yeah. Dude, man, just a side note on HBO Max. I think it's the best streaming platform. Like, they don't have the widest catalog, but like everything they have is the best of the best. Like,
they actually curate well?
Well, it's just like The Sopranos, right? Is probably the greatest TV show ever. Yep. Like, it's the first great TV show.
Yep.
There's that, and then there's that. HBO has Curb Your Enthusiasm, so like classic, probably the best TV comedy ever up there.
Yep. I agree with you on both scores. Yep.
Yeah. So, and they're so their content is up to that quality, and their movies are definitely up to that quality. So,
well, I'm glad I just subscribed to watch The Anarchists. Now I'll use it more.
Great.
That's good. Is The Wire on there too?
I think so. Yeah, The Wire should be HBO. Yeah,
the second greatest TV show of all time, even though it was made by an idiot, David Simon, who blocked me on Twitter because he lost an argument with me. But he still made an amazing series. Yeah. All right. What's up next?
All right. This is a huge story, and I don't like showing the president, but I want to analyze it the way that we kind of analyze things in class. So this is Biden's climate announcement.
Oh, shit.
I come here today with a message. As president, I have a responsibility to act with urgency and resolve when our nation faces clear and present dangers. And that's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger. Climate change is literally an existential threat to our nation and to the world. So my message today is this. Since Congress is not acting as it should, and these guys here are, but we're not getting many Republican votes, this is an emergency. And I will look at it that way. I said last week, and I'll say it again loud and clear. As president, I'll use my executive powers to combat the climate crisis in the absence of congressional action, notwithstanding their incredible action. In the coming days, my administration will announce the executive actions we have developed to combat this emergency. We need to act. We just take a look around. Right now, 100 million Americans are under heat alert. 100 100 million Americans. 90 communities across America set records for high temperatures just this year, including here in New England as we speak. And while so many governors and mayors have been strong partners in this fight to tackle climate change, we need all governors and mayors. We need public utility commissioners and state agency heads. We need electric utilities and developers to stand up and be part of the solution. Don't be a roadblock. You all have a duty right now to our economy, to our competitiveness in the world, to the young people in this nation, and to future generations. That sounds like hyperbole, but it's not. It's real. To act boldly on climate. And so does Congress.
I hadn't seen that. I am trying to figure out how to respond because I have a lot of feelings about that. And I also have a lot of thoughts about it. And I have too many to sort out. Also, I'm not sure strategically what the best way to go is. Well, so he talks about it being a clear and present danger, using military language, using war language. And then he also says he's going to use executive orders to get this done. Well, so that immediately reminds me of Franklin Roosevelt in the 1930s, who used martial language all the time to rally the people around the New Deal, to fight the enemy of the Depression. And then Franklin Roosevelt used executive orders more than any other president in history, used them damn near daily, became as dictatorial and autocratic as any president ever has been, except for maybe Lincoln. And he's the progressives' favorite to this day. But that's what Biden reminded me of right there. So what happened at the end, the culmination of Franklin Roosevelt's tenure as president, was the country was still in a depression, but it went into a third world war. And 500,000 Americans were killed in that war. That's what the result of Franklin Roosevelt's presidency was. We did not have to send those troops to die anywhere. There was absolutely no reason whatsoever. And we didn't save a single person, by the way. But that's for my course on World War II. You can get at the Academy, and it's in my forthcoming book. But yeah, regardless, well, let's just say this, though. As much as I hate Franklin Roosevelt and I blame him for the deaths of tens of millions of people, he at least did have Hitler and the Japanese Empire to point at. I mean, they weren't nothing. They just didn't constitute a threat to us at all in the United States. They also didn't constitute a threat to anyone outside of China, Poland, and Western Russia. Another story. Joe Biden is pointing at this thing that was supposed to have been here already, which is the climate catastrophe. We have climate change. Okay, I see that maybe. But where's the catastrophe? Where's the catastrophe? Where is there even a significant problem that did not exist before the Industrial Revolution that clearly has nothing to do with climate change, like the forest fires in California every year, which are because of Forest Service policies, and we know this, and the mainstream press has reported that. Where is the city that's underwater that was supposed to be? San Francisco and New York City were supposed to be underwater by now, guys. Miami's not even underwater. Remember all those news reports about, oh my God, Miami's taking on water and they're losing shoreline. Where did those news reports go? Guess where they went? They went nowhere because Miami, that shoreline is back up above the surface. None of Miami's been taken by the sea. Who's died? Greta Thunberg. You keep talking about all the people who have died from climate change. I need to know one name. Can I get one name? Can someone name a person who's died from climate change? So he's pointing at a phantom until I see otherwise. And by the way, it's been what now? 30 years? 30 years they've been yelling at us about climate change. 30 years. So it's not like, they haven't had time to revise their theories and their models and their analyses, No, it's every year we hear some new scare story that ends up being nothing. Like Antarctica was supposed to be also, oh, by the way, yeah, there was supposed to be no Arctic ice by now. And the sea levels are supposed to be rising like crazy. There was this recent photo of Sydney Harbor that showed it, I don't know, many, many decades ago, the same level, the water is the same level as it is today. And then Snopes, notoriously corrupt, lying fact-checking organization, had to immediately, put out this retraction, this correction of that and say, well, the only way to accurately gauge the level of the sea is through blah, blah, blah analysis, not photos. I'm like, really? So a photo from 1950 of the Sydney Harbor and a photo of the Sydney Harbor in 2022, seeing where the water was then and where it is now, that doesn't do anything. That's not, anyway. Joe Biden is saying he will militarize the economy. He was also talking about bringing in all these agencies and institutions and banks and businesses to cooperate. That's straight corporatist fascist language, by the way. He's going to militarize the economy, centralize it around him as an autocrat to attack not even Hitler or Tojo, but this thing that doesn't seem to be doing much. It's on top of that, I'm looking at this senile old man who can barely speak, standing on the bank of that river with that big bridge behind it. I'm thinking, this is the end of empire right here. You got a man who can barely put sentences together, but he's standing on top of this giant warship. And he's saying, I think we should point the guns over there. And you just see the thing sinking into the sea pretty soon. It's so preposterous. It's so self-destructive. Oh, by the way, the other thing to be said about this is everyone who thinks this is a good idea to do what Joe Biden's calling for should look at the German economy of the last 50 years. Look at Germany. The Green Party got its way on economic policy, which was to deindustrialize the entire thing. And now they don't have enough fuel to heat their homes next winter. And they are entering hyperinflation. And people in Germany are saying there might be a depression there soon. Germany has the worst economic crisis in all of Europe, which is saying something. Because in UK, they now have food bank lines. People lined up to go to food banks. In London, inflation is through the roof in the UK, much worse than it is here. So this whole thing's coming down, man, unless there's some major course correction. Unless they get some new captain with an actual plan that will actually work. And I have no idea who that would be. I don't even know what that plan would be at this point. I mean, my plan, I'm not even sure my plan's the best idea because my plan is to dismantle the whole thing. Just dissolve, basically the government. I mean, just right down to the municipal level. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of one piece of the federal government, certainly. I mean, the federal government, there's no reason for the federal government to exist. That's completely silly. Mm-hmm. Federal government has no business existing. The states, I mean, that's a more complicated argument. I'm probably against the existence of most of them too, but at least there's an argument there. But the federal government, are you out of your minds? Like, the thing didn't exist until World War II, basically. I mean, it had almost no effect on our lives. World War I, let's say World War I, until World War I. That's, a huge chunk of this. Yeah, huge. Yeah, exactly. A huge chunk of this country's history, right? There was no federal government to care about, right? Yeah. So people did okay, Good Lord. It's really, really bad. Like he can't point at, and by the way, polls of Americans consistently show that they don't give a fuck about climate change. So who is he even talking to? It's going down, man. Mm-hmm. Run. Everybody run. Fast.
Yes.
Not to Canada. Can't go to Canada anymore. Run to Mexico. Everyone should go to Mexico. Let's go meet him. Everybody should meet in Mexico. Mm-hmm. We'll hang out with Lily. We won't get murdered. We'll be good.
When you were talking with Michael Tracy about
Yeah.
how he went to the NATO conference, and he was, well, I wouldn't say shocked, but disappointed yet again by the press and how they seem to be goading NATO to go further with their agenda instead of offering any criticism or speaking on behalf of the people of the countries that they live in. Just goading them to put more military bases in more places. Every story that I found about this is Biden expected to declare climate emergency, and he didn't do that here. He did not declare a national emergency like Trump did about that thing we can't talk about. But yeah, every press outlet is saying this is Biden's time to step up and act like a real president and declare an emergency and tackle the largest existential threat to our species. And they're disappointed in him for not going far enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the press would love an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
The press loves emergencies. They don't care if it's about climate or about war. They're all for it, whatever the emergency is. At the NATO summit, Tracy saw this reporter pester the shit out of Jens Stoltenberg, the head of NATO, and say over and over again, why don't you establish bases in the Baltic countries? Why don't you establish military bases in the Baltic countries? And he was like, well, we would like to, but, and he's like, no, we need those now. We need further deployments. We need more troops. We need, this is the reporter not asking questions, but making demands, because she's like, listen, I work for CNN. This is our business model, bro. We need military conflict. Stat for the ratings, baby. Mm-hmm. And, a good climate crisis, if it actually, or climate emergencies are the best. Emergencies are great. That's like Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. Oh my God, mobilize everyone to go cover it. And our ratings will go through the roof. Everyone will be watching CNN during an emergency. These are scumbags of the highest order. These are the media. I mean, this is the Democrats are not even, I mean, the media that covers the Democrats, that is the propaganda wing of it, they're even lower than the Democrats. The Democrats are doing what you're supposed to do if you're a political party, which is like do anything at all to remain in power, right? So sure, I get it. That's what you're going to do. But the media, these are people who, like, at one point in their lives, they said, I want to be a journalist. And then the next minute, they're just repeating literally the talking points that the Democratic Party gives to them in press releases. They just take the press release written by Dianne Feinstein and then just turns it out to us and says, here's what you should think. I mean, it has nothing to do with journalism whatsoever. And I guess I have even less respect for those people than I do for Democratic Party politicians. Even though the politicians are the ones who get us killed, the journalists are the ones who enable it.
Mm-hmm. Now, just so we don't think this is speculation, the internet never forgets. And there's a Project Veritas leak from a year ago that's resurfacing because of all this talk about the climate. So here we go.
This story comes up, they're going to latch onto it. They've already announced inner office that once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate. Climate, like global warming, and like that's going to be our next, like I don't know, like what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be our focus. Like our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it's just going to be like constantly showing videos of like decline in ice and weather warming up and like the effects it's having on the economy and really
Who
talking
decides that?
the head of the network, like just
Who's that? Is that Zucker?
Zucker, yeah. I imagine that he's got his council and they've all like discussed like where they think
So that's like the next
pandemic like story like that will be to death. But that one's got longevity. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a definitive ending to the pandemic, or like it'll taper off to a point that it's not a problem anymore. Climate, I think, is going to take years. So they'll probably be able to milk that for quite a bit. You know? So.
If James O'Keefe were left wing, the Pulitzer Prize would be renamed the James O'Keefe Prize. He would be considered the greatest American journalist of all time. If he did exactly this kind of reporting, these kinds of stories, but he did it against right wingers, he would be considered the greatest journalist of all time. I think he is perhaps the greatest journalist of all time. I didn't used to think so, but now I think it's pretty much, it's uncontestable. This guy has exposed things that are so momentous, that say so much about who holds power and how they hold power and how they wield it. I mean, you just saw someone who works for the most powerful media organization in the history of the world say that their main focus was to remove the president from office. Okay, and then their new focus will be just another whatever the Democrats want us to say. Whatever the Democrats want, we will do for them. And the way he was like inventing these, well, there's going to be a lot of videos of, you know, ICE and what did he say? Like catastrophes or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so obviously cynical. What I want to know is, so I have a lot of friends on the left who think James O'Keefe is a scumbag. And I'm thinking of one friend on the left in particular who you know, who's done a lot of stuff with us, who's a great and awesome and brilliant.
Well,
he did
I'll say it out loud because he had a public confrontation.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's true. Ben Burgess.
Yeah.
Ben Burgess. Yes. Yeah, and I don't actually know. I didn't watch the whole thing, so I'm not actually sure what Ben's argument is, and I shouldn't say anything until I find out. But I really want to know, like, why on earth is what this guy, that video alone, how is that not an absolute treasure? How is that not one of the greatest feats of journalism ever? You know, to get someone who works high up in the most powerful media organization of all time to say those things, to say that they are just the propaganda wing of the Democratic Party. I mean, why is this not celebrated? People should be like, wow. And wow, how revelatory about how America works. How America works. I mean, that's the whole thing right there. You don't need to know much else. Mm-hmm. From right there, you know, the media says what the Democrats want, period. And what the Democrats want is to remain in power. So we're good. I mean, poli-sci 101 is over, class. Go home.
I think the contention with James O'Keefe with certain smart people like Ben Burgess and Eric Weinstein as well, and a lot of people have leveled these criticisms against him, is Ben Burgess plays the heel. Like, he does scummy things in that, like, all right, there is an attractive woman on the other end of that conversation. And what's happening is Chris, whatever, at CNN is at the bar trying to describe his job and how much power he wields. And he's out on a date and he's trying to look impressive. So it's not the most ethical thing to take what somebody says in a moment of confidence like that and broadcast it to the world in a 15-second edited video. But let's be honest, this is war. Like,
thank you.
Yeah.
These people enable the people who have power over us. Mm-hmm. They enable the people who have power, real power over us, the power to shut down our businesses like they just did, the power to force us to wear masks over our faces as they just did, the power to destroy the economy, to dilute the currency, to make our savings worth less and less and less, the power to kill people in Ukraine and Russia by sending them weapons that we pay for with our names. You know, those CNN enables those people. Without CNN, those people wouldn't be there. Joe Biden would not be president without CNN. We all know that. That's clear as day. So yeah, what I'm doing is I'm celebrating an attack, the exposure of people who essentially control our lives. Like, it is war, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, so fuck them. Now, if it was just an independent journalist or anybody else, really, I mean, if you're working for the White House, game on. You know, no immunity. Sorry. If you're working for the White House, the executive branch of the federal government, if you're working for them, which is what CNN's doing, that's where they take the orders from. Yeah, you're fair game. So next, what's the other argument? Is there another argument?
It's mostly the deceptive editing, and just the way that he presents things is not the most dignified manner of doing it.
What I heard Ben Burgess say was the clip that I did watch was him talking about O'Keefe's choice of targets.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that he's a Republican attack dog.
Because I think he went after, I haven't seen this one, but I guess he went after some union leaders.
Okay.
And Ben loves unions. And I think he said,
the first thing he did was go after Acorn. That was like the big thing that he broke out.
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. Oh, we don't want to know that Acorn is giving money to pimps? Like, what? Or would give money to pimps? Like, which is what was proven.
You can walk up in a Halloween pimp outfit with a bunch of hoes and ask for money and they'll give it to you.
Yeah. I mean, that's good to know. And I'm pro sex work. Everyone knows that. Like, but I don't want the government giving money to anyone, but certainly not pimps. Maybe give it to the sex worker. That'd be cool, but not the pimp. So yeah. Why is it bad to know that? But no, I think they went after some union recently, and that pissed off Ben. And his point was, why are you focusing on some trade union instead of on the CEO of Walmart, who apparently is evil? I don't know. I think it was something like that. You know, I mean, it wasn't. I'd like Ben to deal with this. Maybe we should invite him on. We should invite him on and do a Project Veritas screening. We could show all the videos and then argue with Ben about it. Why it's so bad?
Yeah, James. Yeah, I mean, I consider him a hero, and the more I look into him, the more I realize that, like, Muhammad Ali has that quote where he's like, "Hey, Muhammad Ali, why do you wear all your fancy clothes and why do you talk so much shit? Because nobody would pay attention to me otherwise, right?" Great Elijah Muhammad. Yep, I tried to preach the word of the great Prophet Muhammad, but nobody listened to me until I started driving my Rolls Royce. So here we go.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay, so using the hot chick to deceive the guy, I mean, that's not.
And the sensationalist editing, like, this is what bothers me, is like when he releases something, it looks like it's a tabloid. Like, sometimes he'll have these goofy music videos come out, and it's just like, man, if you want people to take you seriously, like, write an article or something, you know, like, don't say tomorrow night, the most damning explosive thing you've ever seen. Like, it's like a monster truck ad, and it's like a 30-second thing of somebody saying, oh, what we knew already to be true.
Dude, he's not bourgeois. That's the other reason they don't. That's why they hate him too. That's the other reason lefties hate him, because lefties hate things that are not bourgeois, which is so ironic because they claim to be the enemies of the bourgeoisie. But that's it's working class culture. It's tabloids are famously working class.
Yes,
that's what they were. They were invented for the working class of London. Yeah, tabloid newspapers, and that's exactly what he's borrowing from. Is the style of the tabloids? You're dead right, but that's working class style. People, working class aesthetics, working class politics, for that matter. So you know, who's the champion of the working class? James O'Keefe or our socialist friends? I mean, Jacobin. You know, Jacobin magazine. They're, what's his name? Bhaskar Sundar, whatever his name is. Is he the champion of the working class? He's, by the way, born to millionaires. Do you know the editor of Jacobin, the founder of Jacobin, the publisher of Jacobin? He's a rich kid, like a very rich kid. And I give him credit. He's talked about it publicly, but that's what they all are. They're all, you know, the ones who aren't rich like Ben, they're the sons of and daughters of professors, which means they're still part of the ruling class, the elite. But leftists are like almost to a person, at least middle class. They're not working class, never have been. James O'Keefe is. Project Veritas is working class, absolutely, and that's why he's so popular too. By the way,
yes,
because there's a lot more working class people than bourgeois communists in Brooklyn.
Yeah. He's such an enigma. Like he'll put on he did a full stage production of Oklahoma and he played the lead for fun. Like
O'Keefe did?
Yeah, O'Keefe did.
I never heard of that. Why?
Yeah. Just to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird guy. I mean, he's definitely weird, you know. But that's cool. So we're all weird. We've already established that, right?
We're all weird.
Yeah, man. Are we done with videos?
Man, I've got a couple more. Yeah.
Let's do one more.
Yeah. This is real brief.
7 minutes. 7 minutes.
This is brief. Shout out to Stephen Simon of another working class publication, the New York Post.
It is. Always has been. That's right.
Wait, Stephen Nelson, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so Joe Biden hopped off of Marine One, and Steve Nelson cornered him and asked him this question.
President Biden, will you be honoring your campaign pledge to release all the marijuana inmates in prison?
I don't think anyone should be in prison for the use of marijuana. We're working on the crime bill. Thank you.
All right. So Dan Musig, who was on Unregistered and is now in a federal penitentiary, saw that video when it happened, when Biden said that.
This was,
and then
he saw him promise it on the campaign. He reiterated that promise this past week.
Oh, goddamn right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Well, then Dan Musig needs to be out of prison right now.
Yeah.
He's in Morgantown FCI, federal minimum security prison in West Virginia, doing a 5-year sentence for cannabis distribution. He needs to go. He needs to leave that prison today. Right now, Joe Biden twice now has said, yes, go to pardonsnow.com. It's in the chat. That's Dan's organization. But more importantly, his wife is on Twitter. I think she goes by Cannabis Prisoner's Wife on Twitter. Her name's Laura. She's awesome. She's on there every day talking about this, and no one else is, about pardons for cannabis offenders. Go to Twitter and find Laura, Cannabis Prisoner's Wife, on Twitter, and help her spread the word. We can get her out. I mean, we really can. I think we can. Just my podcast, just the people who listen to my podcast can do that. That's enough people. If we all did something, if we all made some noise to get Dan and all the cannabis prisoners out of prison now, we can really do it, because the president of the United States is saying he will, or would, or should. So this is our moment to make real change, serious political change that will change the lives of real people. So please go do that, and go to Pardons Now also. All right. I'm glad you played that clip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's the same exact verbiage as it was on the campaign trail.
I hope it's too bad he doesn't remember anything. It'd be nice if Joe Biden remembers what he said this time. He's now said it twice. Free them all right now. Free them all.
It's a calculated position. Not to be overly cynical, but it is what it is. It's a calculated position to get popular support whenever it's published, but to promise absolutely nothing, which is kind of what the climate proposal was. If you really care about climate change, yes, he said we're going to reorganize and do executive orders, and we're going to pressure Congress to do stuff, but there's no specific policies in that speech he talked about. So
Matt McDermott in the chat says that in that clip, I didn't hear this. Biden said he's talking about marijuana users, not marijuana sellers. Is that right?
He might have said, I thought he just said the word marijuana, but he could make that distinction if he wanted to.
Okay. Okay.
I think the line is nobody should be in jail for marijuana. He might have said using marijuana, but yeah.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that we don't focus on Dan alone. You focus on all of them, and that's Laura's position and Dan's position. They're calling for freeing all the cannabis prisoners. What I'm saying is use people like Dan, though, like I did with the show. I mean, I used him to get the message out about the broader issue. and which is so urgent and pressing. I mean, we have human beings in cages right now who no one thinks should be there. That's what's so crazy about this. No one thinks Dan Music should be in prison for 5 years. No one thinks any weed dealer should be in prison anymore. No one thinks that. But they're there. Lives destroyed. And the way he's described prison to me, and this is a minimum security. This is one of the best prisons in the country. It's known for that. He chose it. His description of this prison is horrifying. It sounds like a third world prison. Compared to Western European prisons, it is. Prisons in Western Europe are far better than American prisons. American prisons are still medieval, man. They're still medieval, and that's where we put weed dealers now. We don't see them. Out of sight, out of mind. That's the problem. That's why we have 2.3 million people in those places, because we never see them. We never see inside those prisons. We never hear from them inside the prisons. It's not in our consciousness. And so that's why there's no movement for it. It's also because BLM has insisted on focusing only on race and claiming that the prison industrial complex is punishing only black people and that only black people are in prison, which is just not at all true at all. There's 500,000 white people in prison right now. But you use cases like Dan, which is so heartbreaking, to publicize the issue and to spread awareness, as we say, about this issue. But again, this is really doable. We can force the Democrats to issue pardons for every cannabis prisoner before they leave office. Kamala Harris, for God's sake, that's in her karma. She's, she owes this to all the people she put in prison when she was the DA in San Francisco, locking up black and brown people every single day. That's what she did for a living in San Francisco. Damn near every person she busted and put in prison was black or brown. She owes it to the people to free those weed prisoners. So please do that, everyone. Thank you. I rest my case. Thank you, Michael. You were brilliant tonight, as always. Thank you for this. If you want to join us right now, we're going to Unregistered Live. All you got to do is become a patron by going to patreon.com/unregistered. Patrons at all levels get to join us at Unregistered Live, which starts in 1 minute. Thank you, everybody. See ya.